Okay, we're started. I'm sorry. Roll call, no audience participation. Okay, we need approval of the January 26th minutes. I'll make a motion to approve as submitted. Scott Barr makes a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Joanne seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, the minutes of the 26th are approved. And next item, we got our financial sustainability planning. I'm assuming that's you, Sarah.
Yes, let me just share my screen here. Give me just a second.
That's in the box, yeah.
Can you all see the presentation okay there?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see, it's got- Thanks, right?
Okay, so around this time each year at Finance Committee, we sort of go over our revenue generating options as we're going through the permanent budget. This year is a little bit different because we are going to have a ballot issue. That ballot issue is for 2.4 mills of property tax that would be dedicated to safety services, police and fire, pension and capital expenses. Property tax at 1 mill does generate just about $700,000. So that 2.4 mills would generate 1.7 million if should the voters pass it here in May. Some other things that we always go over and review are that refuse and recycling program. Last year, that program did cost the city $1.3 million. We provide that at no additional cost to the residents. The performance audit that was completed last year did suggest to introduce a fee there, but that is not something that we're moving forward with at this time. Another thing that we usually discuss is assessments for the road program. Assessments for road program is usually based on frontage, and then those folks who would be having their roads done would get a bill ahead of time so that they would know what that cost would be. We're starting to look at our stormwater system, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get down to Amy's presentation. And then we also have that water utility fee that we include on the sewer bills that we have not done anything with in a while. The big piece is income tax. We used to have that 0.25% that was passed by the voters back when Chrysler closed down. We had it for 4 years. We had them redo the estimate on what that 0.25% would generate post-COVID, and it still would get us just above $3 million, that $3.2 million. I don't have an updated estimate on what reducing the income tax credit would be, but before COVID, for every 25% you reduced the credit, you would generate $2 million in income tax revenue. Are there any questions there about the revenue generating options? Again, this is something we kind of review each year. It's just a little bit different because we do have that safety service ballot issue this year.
Anybody on the council? Questions?
Sarah, I did bring, and I'll leave in your office, I just got today from the city of Brunswick a reminder about filing by April 15th, and their local tax rate's 2%, and then it says they apply a 1% credit if your tax wages are earned in other municipalities, and you have to have proof of that. You know, I told you I got one from Stowe, so these other cities are mailing out these to make sure people are paying what they've earned in other municipalities. So I brought a copy for you to have.
Thank you. Yes, there are communities that do not offer 100% tax credit. Here in Twinsburg, we do. So as long as you pay 2% wherever you're working, you don't owe anything additional if you live here in Twinsburg. But that is something some communities do, that say if we reduced our credit to 1%, like the one you're going to drop off to me, and you worked in a city that had a 2% rate, you'd actually end up paying altogether 3%, because wherever you work would keep your 2%, and then Twinsburg would only give you half of that credit towards your Twinsburg taxes, so you'd owe Twinsburg another 1%.
Right. Well, this is where they're also asking for any house I sold in that community. They're going after getting the taxes, the income tax on each house I sold.
On each house? Wow.
Yeah, so last year I had to file 13 different local income tax.
Cost of this girl sells.
But less money that comes into Twinsburg.
So, and I'll just make a couple of comments. I think, as we work through this tax issue and our ballot issue, I think our dialogue is probably going to start increasing as we get, closer to May. And we've received a set of questions that I'll talk about during the council meeting tonight. But I think, this revenue piece is kind of really important because we're going to have to make some decisions if the 2.4 doesn't pass. So, for council to get really understanding some of the options that are available to them, as well as, you can look at some of the cost-cutting measures, but on the revenue side, we've been talking about trash for a couple of years now, and now we have some kind of concrete numbers on, inside millage, charter millage, and then, of course, the income tax updated on the income tax revenue. So I just want to make sure we just continue that dialogue because we really don't know what's going to happen in May. We're all hopeful, but we need to continue the conversation.
Okay.
And Sarah, this is Greg. On your chart here, it says charter millage 1.4 available. That's the total that's available. That does not, or that right now we already have police and fire pension as a part of that, correct?
Yes, so we have 2 mills of total charter millage. Right now, we are using 0.3 for police pension and 0.3 for fire pension. And those are mandated numbers. Right. We're at the state minimum as far as that goes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Sarah.
Okay. So I also wanted to go over a little bit differently this year is the expense reductions that we currently have in place. As you know, we went through some layoffs last year, and we also just have some positions that were eliminated just as we looked at the different departments and the services that we provide to the citizens. So in Parks and Rec there, the naturalist did retire, and we have not replaced that position. And so I'm not sure what offerings Parks and Rec will be working on this year that Stanley used to provide. I think it's going to somewhat depend on COVID regulations. We are down 1 person in the senior center, so that senior van program is currently reduced. When we get to the end of the presentation here, I will have some permanent budget updates, and we'll talk a little bit about that senior program there. We do have 1 Parks and Rec position that we are currently not filling. Over in the police department, the assistant chief retired, and we are not filling that position at this time. And then a few years ago, when the animal warden retired, we did not fill that position. We do still provide service to the residents as far as animal control goes, but we do not have a full-time employee providing that service. In engineering, we have reduced 3 full-time positions, so that department was essentially cut in half last year, partially due to the layoff and partially due to attrition. In the mayor's office, the executive assistant position was reduced from full-time to part-time, and there was a time when that position was unfilled in 2020. Over in the fitness center, we have reduced hours and programs. Some of that is related to COVID, and some of that is related to just further cost savings while we recover memberships that were lost due to the pandemic. We've reduced 3 full-time positions over there at this time. I don't believe that we are looking to fill those positions. It's 2 receptionists and the fitness center manager are currently vacant. In the building department, we reduced a part-timer and a full-time position, and we'll talk a little bit about staffing in the building department when we get to Keith's presentation. Over in Public Works, we've reduced an administrative position. The service superintendent is unfilled, as well as a full-time clerical position. And then out in Glen Eagles, we did outsource the restaurant and banquet facility. So those staffs were eliminated last year. And we also reduced a full-time maintenance position out at the course. So are there any questions on the expenses that we have put it reduced in 2020 and in previous years?
No, do we see any of those changing though in the near future? All the reductions there?
I think if there are any changes, they're going to be covered in this presentation.
Okay.
Next month, we have police, fire, and service up. And I don't think there's any changes on that service side for the full-time administrative and full-time clerical position. But there are a couple things that we'll talk about later in the presentation today as far as, the sustainability of some of the cuts that were made last year.
All right. Any questions on that? Here. Okay, Sarah.
Okay. So now we'll get into the departmental budget presentations for tonight. We have Larry, Amy, and Keith with us. And I believe first up is Keith with the building department. So over on the left-hand side there, you can see I gave you 2 years of spending for this year as we're going through these departmental budget presentations, just because 2020 is kind of a hard year to compare budget-wise, just because some of the cuts we had to make. So that's why I wanted to include 2019, which was a little bit more of a normal year. And Keith, if you want to speak to those items on the right there.
Sure, thank you.
Hi, Keith.
Everyone? Hello? Yeah, so as Sarah pointed out, we did lose a part-timer and a full-timer in the year. So we, as everybody else did, reduced our budget as best as possible. I think where we're at, we're still seeing a lot of activity. Most of you, I'm sure, see the same activity. This is probably because interest rates are still low and people are spending money. We've seen some increased activity in the commercial sector, too. I think we have, as you know, Dan is full-time and he's got certifications. He doesn't have every certification. And then we have Jason, who's part-time, who has a certification. He's currently applied for additional certifications. My hope is to increase our part-timers' certifications to make him a more viable contender in this department. Operating a department like this, it's to an advantage to have multi-certified personnel so that we can maintain as much coverage as possible without having to have a heavy or deep staff. We've been managing them. The second item on there is our department implementation of our new software. So far, it's working out very well. I think we're actually going to see a little bit of savings with this, just due to efficiency. Right now, though, we're still transitioning, trying to, tweak some of the functions so that we get the process to exactly correspond with what our normal business practice is. We're almost there. You can see there's a link there. That now, if you go to the mytwinsburg.com, which is the city's webpage, and you go to the building department, this link is on our page, which gets you to the public portal, which allows residents, contractors, or anyone interested in collaborating with the city building department, whether it's to become a contractor, obtain a permit. Also, if there's any concerns you have regarding property maintenance, that's also in there. It seems to be working pretty well. We actually had today, a customer was very happy because we issued a permit within 3 minutes of them getting online, which is pretty good speed for us. Also, one of the things we did after the first of the year, we started collecting the 1% and 3% fees. This is a percentage, collected, by the state of Ohio. We're obligated to pay them for our overall percentage of permit costs. And this is related to anything that the code and building codes apply to. So previously, what was happening is the city was almost absorbing this fee, or either of these fees. When a commercial permit came in, we would just take that 3% off the total cost of the permit and pay the state. Now what we've done is segregated that so that the customer picks up that, and that's paid as part of the actual permit fee, which is typical in most communities that have certified building departments. So that got us a little more in line with what everybody else is doing, and is saving us, well, it looks like we paid close to $12,000 in 2020. So I would think it's going to save us at least that this year. So with that, I think we are trying to do our best to keep our costs down and continue to do so. If there's anything you have as far as suggestions that may improve, I'm happy to listen and work with anybody to get to that point. But that concludes my report.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Keith? Anybody on council or the committee? Bill?
Does the 3% go to your department, or does it go to the CIC? Because I thought fees for the permits all went to the CIC.
No, this money, the state of Ohio has in the Department of Commerce, it's the Board of Building Standards, who initiated this back in 2003, it might have been. They started collecting 3% on all commercial permits for certified building departments. This money was earmarked to provide educational materials, books, seminars, to maintain certification and training for department personnel. 2005, I think, and don't quote me on the actual years, but went to the 1% when they brought in the residential code of Ohio, and that 1% was supposed to do the same thing. I can say that departments do annually receive books. There's been a lot of discussion about where this money goes, but ultimately it's one of those things that's been in place. CIC does not get it, the city doesn't keep it, we don't get a recovery on it, it goes right to the state.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have economic development and planning. Again, you can see on the left-hand side there, we include a 2-year expense history for the department. The planning department I don't have included in there. That budget is really just for the committee, and it's about $2,500. So their 2021 budget is just a little bit up. And Larry, if you want to take over to talk about the stuff on the right-hand side, that would be great.
Hey, sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, basically, I mean, the community development department and planning basically are at minimum levels as it is, so it's hard to cut anything if you don't have anything to cut. Our biggest expenses, like others, include the salary expenses. We've had a number of reductions, even in this current budget, that are reflected in the numbers. And that includes a reduction to basically a very bare minimum administrative costs. Our travel has been reduced both in terms of anticipated impacts of COVID and the increased emphasis on virtual meetings and virtual meeting technology. The training and education portion of our budgets have been reduced just to cover the cost of our professional AICP maintenance certifications. Our professional services basically is also reduced to minimum. That just right now includes basically just the cost of our real estate data service under CoStar. And there's a slight increase in professional services because of our contribution to new permitting software. But by and large, everything is at the bare minimum and has been for a number of years. A slight increase as a result of some payouts that will occur this year, and that's pretty much the extent of it. With regard to economic development, just to clarify, the CIC does not receive any money from the city aside from we receive money from businesses who benefit from incentive programs like the TOP and the CRA. When they do their annual reports, there's an annual reporting fee to cover the cost of doing the analysis of their performance, conducting a tax incentive review council meeting, and making reports to the state. And that the fees that we charge to the benefited companies are in their community reinvestment area or Twinsburg occupancy program grant agreements. So that doesn't come from the city, it comes directly from the companies. The only thing we get from the city at this point is bed tax, distribution of a portion of the bed tax. And you can imagine what's happened to that over the last year. It's basically 50% of what it used to be. And I just wanted to clarify that point for those who may think that the CIC is getting deep subsidies from anybody. So that's basically it in a nutshell. We do provide payouts to the school district to compensate them for revenue losses. That comes primarily from the Community Investment Area Program because that's where property tax is abated. We are not required to provide any compensation to anybody other than the city from the TOP program, the Twinsburg occupancy program, that basically provides a grant to the company in return for their job creation. And over the next year, well, last year we lost two of the largest CRA companies and Twinsburg occupancy program companies. So those outlays have declined and will continue to decline as some of these active agreements expire. So that's kind of a quick summary. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Larry?
Yeah, Larry, what's the main reason for the increase in your budget from the last 2 years?
As I said, there'll be payouts this year for that kind of stuff, the vacation and sick time stuff.
Thank you.
That's the only reason. Everything else is declined.
Okay. Anybody else? Hearing none, Larry, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, next up we have Amy. She's got the next couple slides here because she's talking about engineering as well as the infrastructure budgets for this year. Again, you can see that pretty significant drop on the left-hand side from the 2019 expense down to 2020 and into her 2021 budget. Amy, is Amy on here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Hello.
As far as the budget, it's gone down again because we lost 3 personnel. That was the biggest chunk associated with that. We didn't do last year, again, our expenditures were down, didn't really advance any projects through professional services, et cetera. So we are looking at advancing a few things as needed. So again, we're down there. It pretty much covers inspection, studies, testing, those types of things. We did, in our capital, we had a copier we delayed last year. We did replace it this year. It was, I think, the oldest copier in the city. And then we also have budgeted a plotter, which is our big full-size, does plan copies, and it's interdepartmental. We do stuff for Parks and Rec whenever they're actually doing events and need displays, and the building department uses it. So it's when it goes down, it's getting at an age that basically doesn't have the ability to repair it and find parts as much. So we do have that budgeted. We have not ordered that. We'll see how the year goes and whether we wrap that around or need to actually do that expense this year. That's pretty much on the budget unless anybody has major questions.
Questions on this portion for Amy? No, Amy.
Okay, our programs this year, infrastructure programs, we did delay the one program that Dorridge, which we had Ohio Public Works funding for. We worked with Ohio Public Works, and we're able to move that out a year based on where we thought we would project it to be. So our programs this year include the tree program. A lot of that money has come from the developers, Boulder Brook, Shepherd Preserve, and Whispering Woods, to plant the trees that are in the tree lawn as those lawns are established. So we hope to get a lot of that planted this fall and next spring. We also do the sidewalk where it cannot be repaired by the service department regarding and leveling. They provide us a list every year. Again, we did not do that we did do that last year, but it was a much smaller program, probably about half that. And then catch basin repairs. These are catch basins on like State Route 82, major structures. These aren't their smaller basins that service department can do, require a lot of traffic control and setup, and again, that was approved in the budget. And right now, and then you've got the East Sidewood Bridge maintenance, culvert maintenance, which we're in design with right now. That was inspected in 2019 and requires some repairs. If you've ever gone over that bridge, the sidewalk's kind of wobbly over there. Has to do with some work that needs to be done to that structure to reinforce it, and then we can put the sidewalks back in over there. And then I think next slide shows, can we flip the next slide?
Road program?
Shows the road program. It shows basically we're down to 2.1, almost 2.2 lane miles. To get on a 20-year cycle, that number has to be about 4.75 lane miles. So for the last couple of years, we've reduced it, which because in the 10 years previously, we've been trying to play catch up, and we've been averaging 6% of the roadway network a year, and making strides to bring a lot of the roads into a decent shape. Less pothole patching occurs throughout the years. We're able to do that again this year. But as you see, there's some forecasts. If we don't do anything in the future to increase the dollars here, because you're talking about a network that has increased drastically in lane miles. We have over 190 lane miles of roadway, and most of that was developed in the last 25 years or so with the great growth that we underwent. So if we don't increase, we're going to fall way behind. And then it's a question of what is that target. Like I said, probably about 10 years ago, we put a target of trying to get to a 20-year cycle. Some roads basically have to be done sooner than that, like State Route 91 and 82, where we do get some federal money associated with those projects in the state. But they probably fall in more of a 15-year cycle, where some of the subdivision roads might be able to last at a longer period. And we do have ones that are out there well over, that are over 20 years since they've been resurfaced. So it's kind of a combination in between there. And then there's roads that maybe those subdivision roads that, all of a sudden start potholing at 15 years. As you go through and resurface, you're going to get less time that resurfacing is going to last. So we project in the future we're going to have to increase the dollar amounts, and I kind of laid it out there in the slide as some options there. And then finally, the road striping. We did not stripe last year. We have that out to advertise right now. We're looking at repainting over some of the thermoplastic in the southern part of 91 that's starting to deteriorate a lot of the intersection crosswalks, et cetera, as well as it's almost a pretty much all citywide painting associated with that project this year. I don't anticipate being quite as much as we estimated when we originally looked at it. We weren't sure whether we were going to put thermoplastics or if we were going to paint. But like I said, that's currently out to bid. So, you got any questions on the program?
Yeah, Amy, I do. On the road program, refresh my memory. Where are we at with Ravenna Road between Glenwood and East Idlewood? Are we still a year or so away from being able to do anything?
Yeah. Yes, we are funded through AMAX. It was originally in the 2024 programming.
Okay.
We are moving that up based on a discussion with AMAX to 2023. They had some projects that slid, and I basically said we'd be able to get it prepared and out to them for their review and approval so that it can actually be bid because it's got to go through their process. And we're hoping in 2023 we'll be in a little better position. Again, that is still 80% funded by the feds and only 20% city funding. So it's a good deal on that, to work within, try and find that funding for the roads that are eligible.
Got it. Okay. And then one small item, under the tree program, I don't know if this would fall under there or not, but I know for the last few years, I think it's like every other year, every third year, the ash trees in Glenwood Preserve have been injected through our arborist. And is that something, I think we're 3 years out now since it was done last time. And I know that...
Yeah, I believe I have
Do you have that in there for this year? I mean, I know that's a bit of an expense. It's not a major expense, but, I mean, you've got a lot of ash trees there, and they do so well. They're doing so well that the city, the service department came out this summer and I think spent at least a week just, trimming those trees up because they're really thriving. And I would hate to see those all, die out and us have to make that expense to replace all those trees.
5K.
Well, we do have a purchase order through our professional services. We hire an outside arborist to do that, and that will be lined up whenever the weather breaks before,
So, I'm sorry, that's something we will do this year?
Hopefully prevent some of the intrusion by the emerald ash borer.
Okay. Did she say, are we going to do that this year? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yes. I already
Okay.
have the PO in for that, so
Okay.
we're set to move forward once the weather is appropriate.
Okay, got it. Maureen, you have a question?
I do have something. Amy, I didn't see Ethan's Drive on that list. I thought we talked
I
about...
didn't quite catch that, Maureen.
Pardon me? You can't hear me? Is that what you said?
Yeah, talking right in the mic.
Can you hear me now? Amy? Amy? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
No, still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Amy?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, hi. You got it now. Hey, Amy, I didn't see Ethan's Drive on that list, and I thought that Ethan's Drive
He's out now.
What was that?
Maureen, can you try again?
Oh, Ethan's Drive? I didn't see that on the list. Ethan's, I'll try this. Ethan's
Is
Drive?
Ethan's Drive on the list? Sorry.
Did we lose Amy?
That scare you?
No, not me.
Amy, can you hear us?
I don't scare. Oh, we might have lost her.
Wait.
They are having a technical difficulty right now, so I think we've lost sound from council chambers for a moment.
Oh, yeah.
So I will flip back over to the road program real quick while Mark
got the
works
streets in
on
there,
that.
that's what they're
Yeah, she has a little, yeah, we talked about
We
it.
do just, I think, want to take a moment here on the road program to understand what we're really talking about is in our multi-year planning that we're going to try to roll out, that the road program essentially needs to double to get back to a 20 to 25 year replacement cycle on the roads. Is that correct, Amy?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one of the other things that came out in our planning sessions is that we probably need to start doing some studies to take a look at storm sewers and possibly get a program going there. And that is one of the things that I had mentioned back on Amy's engineering slide about professional services. Amy, did you want to talk for a minute about the stormwater? We do not have a dedicated revenue source for stormwater repairs.
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at is, we're talking to Chris, we do, cleaning of the catch basins in the areas we know that are, can become blocked during storms and things like that. But we don't have a really rigorous way of really reviewing what's underground. And if you remember last May, we did have a collapse in a major pipe system, and we're able to make that repair in a fairly timely fashion. But we want to make sure that we're going through and making sure everything in the city is somehow looked at a little bit more closely, just so we can keep an eye on. We can program things so they're not emergency repairs, they're actually programs, possibly go after Ohio Public Works funding, and find ways of dealing with things that we might find that are minor right now. If you did a minor repair, you might help prevent a major problem down the road. So we will be, what our goal is, maybe put it on a 10 to 15 year cycle where we start going in and we get the videos and the cleaning, maybe in a subdivision, or two, depending on the size of that subdivision every year, based on what we know is coming up with resurfacing. So we take a good look at everything beforehand. And this isn't something that sewer maintenance can really do, because they're doing the sanitary sewer maintenance associated with that and don't really have the personnel to do it. I don't think we need dedicated personnel and another truck to do it if we do it in increments and we do it in this type of cycle. So right now I'm getting some pricing just to see what it would be to do like a subdivision. I think Metro Woods has, is one of the ones that probably has roads that are 16 to plus years since they've been last resurfaced, so they would be coming up in the next few years for a resurfacing program, so we can start reviewing that well ahead of time and doing some of those things. I think that's kind of what we're looking for, a program. Kind of wanted, I guess, some buy-in on that. Is that what we're looking for, Sarah? Is that the direction we want to move? Again, it's kind of an unfunded utility but at this point in time. But I think we need to start looking at what we can't see from the street.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Amy. I think we just wanted to make sure that we got the information out there about where we're at with the road program, and see where council's at on getting back to that 2025 year replacement cycle on the road program, and then also talking about if we want to start prioritizing that stormwater program, and if we do, we do need to be able to pay for it. So that's another thing that we want to look at as we're looking at future financial planning, is making sure that we make room for those programs if it's something that council wants to move forward with or increase in the road program's case. And I'm not sure if we can hear them yet.
Are we allowed to use? Get out of the way.
Doesn't seem like it.
Are we allowed to use?
So what I can do, Amy, if you don't mind hanging on the line, we can come back and have a discussion with council about those couple things when their sound is back, and I can move on to these last couple slides if that's okay with you.
Sounds good.
Okay. Set that on the side. All right, so I will just keep chatting away here, and council, when you can speak again, just let me know, and we'll go back and talk about those couple things.
Can you hear us now,
And
Sarah?
also, if you have any
Sarah?
questions along the way, as I'm talking about the last couple slides, just jot them down and we can go back and go through them. So the other permanent updates, I wanted to go over these just because there's not necessarily dedicated time at Finance Committee, and I still wanted to bring them to your attention. Some of it is the smaller departments, and some of it is just the revenue side of things. So on the revenue side of things, the sewer revenue and improvement funds were updated to include that reminder fill flow money, because that project got completed last year. The past couple years, we kept thinking, oh, I think they might be back.
Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us?
Sarah?
I heard a noise. Can you guys test?
Hey, Sarah?
That's my voice.
We are testing.
Is it noisy?
Okay. So that 1.9 million, the wire is coming in this year after that project was completed last year. So we went ahead and added those revenues back in. We also updated the property tax revenues, which we get property tax for police pension, fire pension, and this year is the last year for the park bond. And that information was just updated from what Summit County gives us, same with the county local government money. And then on those clubhouse revenues and the building department revenues, once we closed out 2020, we just went ahead and matched up our revenues based on those results, and we were able, on the Glen Eagles side, on the clubhouse side, to reduce that golf subsidy. Last year they had a really great year, but they were closed for a month, so I do feel comfortable in adding in that revenue estimate for this year, but obviously it all depends on how the season goes and if the weather holds for us. Then over on the expense side, over in civil service and HR, we needed to add a little bit of money to Michael's budget because he is doing a couple things over there in HR. One is adding in a wellness program platform for our employees. As you know, we went self-insured this year, and this will tie in with that. This is a wellness platform where the employees will be able to challenge each other and report in health information in order to earn that incentive next year when we do those payouts. He also is going to have some testing over in safety services, and we wanted to make sure we could cover the cost of the testing and everything that goes along with hiring in those areas in dispatch, police, fire, running the background checks, doing the assessments. And then we are probably going to have some recruiting costs as well. And this will get to Sam's question earlier on any additional personnel. We may want to be looking at this year going out and trying to recruit a Class 4 wastewater superintendent, excuse me. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit next month when we have Chris presenting for Public Works. But we're adding a little money over into civil service and HR to help with that. On the IT side, we did enhance some of our cybersecurity measures, and there was a cost associated with that, so we went ahead and added in a little bit of money to IT's budget to cover that, as well as to cover the communications expense based on where we ended up last year in 2020. Under general government, we updated for some informational materials that are going to be, going out to the residents this year, and then we also adjusted our subsidies. We added back some of our capital items that I had put on hold that CIB had approved last year, so that increased our capital improvement subsidy. And I'll talk about what those items are probably next month because they were mostly fire and service. So we'll talk about that when those folks are up for their budget presentations. And we also were able to reduce the subsidies like I said, for the golf course, and then we reduced the subsidy for the fitness center as well, just because we were able to cut a few expenses over there at the fitness center, just in an attempt to get as close to even as we can over in that enterprise fund. And then last item on the expense side of that list is at the senior center. We have a little bit of money that I put back into the senior center budget because should we be able to open that facility and possibly increase our van driving services as the pandemic ends, we're going to need a little bit more personnel. Right now, we just have Laura, so she is going to need help if she's able to get that building back open. Okay, I don't hear anything yet, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide.
Can you hear us,
So
Sarah?
bad, I'm flying right along here. So then I just have some statistics from the permanent budget. It's on first reading tonight. First up, we have general fund. I know there's always questions about where the general fund money goes. 60% of our general fund spending is for the folks you see down at the bottom of this side. It's police, fire service. So it's the main services that our citizens see every day, the folks that take care of them and keep them safe and keep the roads in good order. So that's what we will cover next month, is that 60% of the general fund. We were able to reduce appropriations 2.73% from last year's original budget. So again, that just goes to we're still trying to reduce operating expenses the best that we can, while also giving the employees that are here their cost of living increases, and you know, budgeting for all the other increases that come along. And then we do have an estimated draw on reserves, on general fund reserves this year. We needed to start bumping up the road program and capital improvements. And then we have our last payment on the debt service for the purchase of the golf course, which that bond also covered, I believe, the costs of the senior center as well, and a few other things that were rolled together for that bond. The last payment will be this year. And that we're going to keep a close eye on our income tax revenues and how those recover this year. So hopefully that draw on general fund, you know, can be lessened as income tax revenues recover, and should we receive any more relief funding. I'm trying to keep a good eye on that relief funding. Thus far, I don't believe that we have any final word on what we may or may not get. And then the reserves last year, as we talked about last month, our reserves in the general fund did grow from 8 million to just under 12 million there. That is because in the first half of the year, we put in a lot of cost-saving measures, implemented those in relation to the pandemic to make sure that we could get through the year. And in the second half of the year, we went over that last month. We got millions of dollars in relief funding and payouts from workers' comp that allowed us to build that reserve that will help to carry us through 2021. And I think we're still waiting on sound.
No sound yet, Mark?
So then, in total, the permanent budget that's on first reading tonight, we have reduced the budget 21.68% from the original 2020 appropriations. And that's, I wanted to give you another number there, because once you back out that clubhouse note roll that we've been doing the past couple years, and the budgets from the restaurant and the banquet center, the true budget reduction is that 6.13%. I wanted to back out those items that really aren't necessarily fair to compare to show a year-to-year reduction.
How much longer you got?
This is my last slide.
Yeah, they can't hear you.
Oh, they can't hear me?
Oh, I mean, they can hear you, but you can't hear that. I'm gonna call you in here and ask questions.
Oh, okay. All right. And then the permanent appropriations in total, we are just 1% away from being balanced. So we're going to continue to review for anything else that we can cut and any revenue generating opportunities. And we were able to get that close because of that $1.9 million payment that we put in there that we're getting from Summit County. So I think Mark is here to.
Why don't you relay any questions they have? I got trust people, Sarah. They can ask questions.
Okay.
What did he say? Okay, so we are.
You gonna work, Mark?
Yeah, go ahead and try.
They would have questions.
The sewer money that we have, 1.9 million, are we allowed to use that for storm sewers as well as sanitary sewers?
I believe it is for. Sorry, the feedback is really bad. I believe it's for the sanitary system because that's due to that reminder bill tie-in. But we can go back and look at that contract to double check and make sure what all we would be allowed to use that 1.9 million for.
So set aside the to the 1.9 million, the sewer fund has had $700,000 in it already. And the sewer improvement has 1.3.
Yeah. Do you want to try to text it?
I'll ask her later.
Or do you want to maybe?
Or maybe could I come with my laptop over there?
In the past, I thought we used.
Here, I'm gonna bring my laptop down to you guys. We're gonna travel. Stand by.
I want to hear the answer to your question.
Pardon me?
I want to hear the
Yeah, she
answer to
should
this.
just,
I'm curious.
Here we go. This is funny.
Well, we won't be able to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
We gotta turn that around.
We're on.
So City Hall tour.
$25 million between the sewer fund and
Nice.
the
Right.
town and the other one.
Help us out, right?
About raising the, fee for, she brought this up before.
Right.
It's like the beginning of Saturday
I would
Night
rather do the income tax increase, and do the property tax increase versus nickel and dime people. That-
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I agree.
I
One
agree.
thing I want to point out is the road program, I know you were asking about.
Yeah.
So that analysis was the same analysis that we provided to you back when you were looking at the increase in charter millage. And we looked at those roads and we started looking out basically what we're going to be able to afford.
And that's how we've done our road program.
We've done.
Thank you. My laptop.
Okay.
I'm in a tunnel. So you got to be in front of the plate.
So what I was trying to share was that the road program over the last 60 years has been based on
So we've taken a large number of roads that need to be repaired. Said here's our budget, and then we pick the roads that need the worst. So that's where we're getting behind. That's why you saw in that chart. If we start catching up, and we get on a 20 to 25 year life cycle, that's almost double what we're spending. So we're getting further behind. So that's where, from a road standpoint, we need to start catching up. But from a budgetary standpoint, we've only been allocating 750 to 900,000, where in the previous years it was like 1.5 million. So that's, I just kind of wanted to share that because that analysis was in a lot of your packets when we were first looking at that 4.9 charter millage.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I keep hearing myself.
I thought we had the roads on.
Daisy has a question. Is she coming here? Daisy has a question.
If you could answer it, with the road striping, thermoplastic replacement, what is that? It's planned for state property to have.
thermoplasty is a more permanent reflective type of striping. So when you look at what put up around the Glenwood roundabout, that striping, and especially originally when the temporary striping was very dark. I don't know if you remember driving that at night, you could barely see the center line. Once the thermoplasty went down, they're more reflective.
And then I don't know if everyone's noticed, we now have overhead lights in that particular area, which I think is all too. So, but it's a more permanent, more reflective type of striping. Did I say that right, Sam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a paint either. Everything else is painted, this is not.
So we plan on doing that for the whole city?
No,
No, I think.
that was just for 82, just, they meant just a few roads they mentioned. Yeah. But Bill, you had a question for Sarah before you were trying to get across.
I did. In the past, I believe we have used sewer money or sewer construction money on storm sewers. I believe we've done that. So if we put the 1.9 that could be special because it's specifically set up on that deal with Reminderville Way, we still had $600,000 in that fund.
Right, we do have a line item for storm sewer.
Sewer improvement's got 1.36 in it before you put the 1.9 in, right? Or did you put it in? And this is, I'm looking at the statement of cash that ended on 1/31, so this is 2 weeks old.
Yeah, that's the latest one.
Okay.
It does not have the 1.9.
Right, so you had 1.3 in the storm improvement, in the sewer
Right.
improvement right now.
Right.
So now you're gonna have 1.9, 3.3 or something, yeah, because it's 63, it's 365, so, anyway, got a lot of money.
Yeah, sewer improvement and sewer revenue, we have.
Right, so.
Fund balances.
So I believe in the past, we've used that in road programs where you had a storm sewer, a sanitary sewer, and a road.
Right.
I thought we were using some of that, quasi-capital improvement money
Yes.
for the storm sewers.
Yes, but we have not been having a storm or road agreement, which is what Amy was talking about,
So-
to have going forward.
But we have enough money that we could start that now,
Correct.
and we wouldn't have to charge anybody additional money, because we have money for it
No,
now.
and we're not talking about charging
All
anybody
right,
additional money.
there was a day when people talked about putting that as an adder onto the sewer bill. Sam, do you recall
I
that?
remember that, yep.
Right.
Okay, and I'm saying I would rather not do that,
Right.
so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I just would have to look into the 1.9 specifically, because I think it was for plant improvements and things like that.
So I have a question regarding the property tax.
Okay.
Do you know, or is it calculatable to figure out what the increase of appraisals or the status of appraisals, because some people went down, I think most people went up, what that would do to not only our 0.6 but our 2.4 as far as real dollars? Is that something that you can estimate? Or is there a percentage, can somebody at the county say, yes, Twinsburg property values went up a total of 22% or 17%, so that we could expect an increase in the revenues we projected for that 2.4 and 0.6 to be something new?
So the 2.4, the 1.7 million for the 2.4 is based on the updated reappraisals.
Okay.
So we could do the math, that gets us $708,000 for 1 mil, so whatever that times 60% would be what we're getting for the 0.6. But that's also on current.
And what did we get before?
What did we get before? I would have to look at
Okay.
the revenues.
I'm just curious what the increase is overall.
Sure. I want to say it's like $15,000 to $20,000 in each pension fund, but I'd have to double check. I'm not sure.
That would make it a fairly small increase, like 5 to 7, maybe not even that high. Because we're getting 600, and if you only went up 20,000, that's 5%, right? Less than 5%?
Yeah, I don't have all my stuff in front of me.
Okay, I'll stop.
Sorry. I can get you those numbers.
Okay, anything else for Sarah? Amy was done? We're done with her?
Unless you had any questions about the road program and what we're trying to do there.
Was Ethan's Drive on the road program? Because I thought we just did that.
Well, no, I talked to Amy back in July. I looked at the thing, and at my last email with Amy, and I thought that there was talk that was going to be pushed, but I don't know how far out it was. But it was, that things were behind. But
I could have sworn we just did Ethan's, like we did Ethan's, and then we went to Alling.
if we did, we need to get our money back because it's a mess. What's
We did
that?
that 5 years ago.
Ethan's? Yeah,
It was a resurface.
is it on the resurface?
We did it.
Yeah, it is on there?
No, Amy's here.
Oh, Amy's still on there. But the road is in bad shape, I can tell you that.
Okay.
I don't know if it's,
I just drove it the other day.
yeah.
I'm back again.
Yeah, check it, drive it again. I've had residents contacting me saying they ride their bikes
Not so long
and
ago, and I'm looking
bouncing all
at, you
over.
get those winter cracks, like
Yeah.
50 yards.
yeah, and I wonder what they do about all those. I mean, I don't
Because
know.
Haggett was just done it. I was looking at that going, man, Haggett and Alling was just done it, and they didn't wear well.
Yeah, it did not well. well.
Yes, I am. Ethan's Drive from 91 to Mathers Way has been probably over 16 years. The part that was done with Mathers Way to Post Road was probably done within the last couple of years.
No, yeah, it was like in the middle.
so-
One half was
Yeah.
done, the other half
But
wasn't.
we are looking at in possibly next year's road program. Again, we were, this last year and this year, we pushed the road program, down just basically to balance with what money was available.
She's not making
And
that.
then, the comment about, whether we're going to stay on what type of cycle we're on. Like I said, those roads are not to 20 years yet, but again, Ethan's is a heavily gravelled roadway, so it's going to show wear and tear more because it's going to get more large vehicles, moving trucks. It just has more traffic on it, and it's going to pop quicker.
Right, and
just
especially
based on
once
the
the,
loading.
she can't hear
But
me.
yeah, it's on a future year, it's not on this year. The streets that are on this year are listed. The miscellaneous patching is on the southbound leg of Glenwood, down between Lake Sharon and East Idlewood, where we're going to patch that line because we won't get money again from AMAT to the state for probably a good 5 to 10 years. So we want to make sure that doesn't start popping and creating a problem for the winter.
She can't hear us at all, right?
Yes,
Oh, Amy, you can hear me. You can hear me. Okay. So I think what we talked
Yes, I
about,
can.
well, I think what we talked about was that because of the roundabout, there was a lot more wear and tear on Ethan's Drive. But you're right. That's what it was half was finished, half of it was redone, the other half wasn't. And it's really pretty choppy right now. Will they just patch it? Is that what you do, or does it just kind of stay the way it is between
Some temporary.
some temporary repairs? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a pothole or patching, a service does some repairs this spring as well, but we'll have to look at that. It's not in the complete resurfacing this year. It's, like I said, it probably will be in next year's in terms of, and then it's how much we do next year as well. Do we do 2 miles again, or are we going to start pushing the mileage up so we're getting back to a cycle that we can stay ahead of things?
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else for Amy? No, Amy, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, are you there yet?
I'm back.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
If you give me 2 seconds, I can give you the pension increase from our 0.3 and 0.3 now that I'm back with all my materials. Yeah, so last year we got $195,000 in property taxes for each pension fund. And this year we're gonna get about 213,000. So it is just about the $20,000 increase, based on the reappraisal for that 0.3 and 0.3.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. I think that's all we had for tonight then, unless there was any other questions about the updates. I don't know if you guys had caught when we had talked about the senior center and possibly needing staffing if we could open that building. We just wanted to make sure council was on board with that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I believe
I
everybody
am,
is.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah, if that's all you have, we'll move on to comments and questions. Anybody have any comments or questions? Committee or council?
Thank you.
Anyone?
No.
Mayor, any questions, comments?
No, nothing for
Good.
me.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous? Okay, hearing none, the next meeting will be March 23rd. I believe that'll be at 6 o'clock unless we hear anything different. And at this point, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.